The Adam and Eve story, the history of Cataclysm, the Great Floods. Noah, Adam, and Eve, Vishnu, Osiris, what do you have in common with the represent the era, ages apart, but yet somehow they all join hands for the next cataclysm and walk with us. There are others walking with us, with men over the signs long forgotten, those who first saw the turmoils of the cataclysmic atmosphere of the revolutions of the earth shall have happened before countless times. J. Andrew Duluck of the 1779 and George Carver of the 1812 were the foremost Dalmatia, and the famous mineralogists joined with the consensus as did Eschar and Vorel, Swiss geologists as is J. Andre Duluck Jr. and von Bach. They all argued that catalysms were caused by sudden revolutions in the wrong direction by the surface of the earth. Cavire and his theory of the Earth, the first published in 1812, the base for the conclusion of unparalleled correct correlative research with stratigraphy, comparative anatomy, and planetology. As a matter of fact, the cover was defined with a scientific comparative anatomy based with the pioneer's self-taught work in the field at the time of the road, that every part of the earth, every hemisphere, every continent exhibited the same phenomena. There's therefore, by succession, variation, economic, organic nature of the various catastrophes which have disturbed the strata have given us numerous shiftings of this continental basin. It is much of the importance marvel that these repeated interruption of the retreat of the sea have never been slow, but not gradual. Over the contrary, most of the catastrophe with the accompanied occasion will have been sudden. This especially easily to prove with regard to the last for the catastrophe. Agree, therefore, with the M.M. Deluxe and Delumnia is thinking that everything in the geology is established. It is the surface of our globe and have undergone great sudden revolution, date with which cannot be made much earlier than 5,000 to 6,000 years ago, and one preceding revolution at least had put the continents underwater, perhaps 2 or 3 interruptions of the sea. The alteration now appear to be from the problem in geology that most of the important solve it. In order to solve it satisfactorily, it would be necessary to discover the cause of these events. These ideas that have haunted, I am almost say, that tormented me during the reach of the among the fossil bones, reach of the embrace, the very small part of those phenomena, with the aid of the proceeding of the last general revolution of the globe, which are intimately connected with all the others. Many attempts have been made with the charge made with the geological profession called virtue, explain that they suddenly revolution with the wrong direction. Among those others, Valcasi tried through his study of the myths and legends. Hapgood tried it. Hugh Brown attempted it. And in the process, amassed a tremendous library of the geological data. Every time the cataclysmic concept has risen, the beast has been stoned, buried, burned at the stake, beaten to the pulp, buried with a vengeance, and the corpse won't stay dead. Each time it raises the lid off his coffin and says with a sulphurous tone, "You will die before I." Latest challenge of the Professor Frank K. Hebden, who has in the book Lost Americans. This was the ordinary extinction vague with the geological period, which fizzled with the uncertain end of the death of the catastrophic, all inclusive with the cause of the death of the 40 million animals. The corpse of Delicia is the mystery of the found with almost anywhere. Their bones lying bleaching in the sands of Florida with the gravel of New Jersey. Whether out of the day terrace of the Texas protrude with the sticky ooze of the tar pits of Wilshire Boulevard in Los Angeles. The bodies of the victims are everywhere. We find literally thousands of together, young and old, foul, damn calf of the cat with the cow of the muck pits of Alaska are filled with the evidence of the over universal death, a picture of the quick extinction, argument that caused most of the to apply to North America, Siberia, and Europe as well. A mammoth and bison were torn and twisted through the cosmetic hand of the godly rage. Many places of the Alaskan, much of the blanket packed with the animal bones, debris of the trainload with the lots of the mammoth, the mastodon, bison, horses, wheels, bears, lions, and a funeral population in the middle of some of the most catastrophe was suddenly frozen in grim charade. Supernatural winds, volcanic burning, inundation, burial, and muck preservation of the deep free with both the torn up animals and muck. Any good solution with the consuming the mystery of the must answer for all the facts for the challenging heaven. Challenges won't leave it alone. Wouldn't leave it to me alone. I hunger and know that this my subconscious key of the deep tone of the Culver's challenge. Finding the cause of these events still reverberating through the sacred half of the science for the ghostly unanswered of the AFL, the Ivan's challenge, prodding and answer all the facts. I decided the Casmo concept is the catastrophic end which visits our planet time after the need of the verification and refutation once and for all. The reserve step was given all the known except the data of the many sung with pertaining to our planet with the possible stratigraphy, archaeology, radiology, anthropology, paleontology, ocean geography, and cosmetology, astronomy, and seismology, oceanography, polyissue languages such as prehistoric man. Even evolution could not be ignored further. The cross-correction of the data between the scientists had to be honored. All of the foregoing give the answer, although there's enough data for the most scientific to indicate that these chasmistic happening, there's not enough in each space to arrive at the process for the proof of the concept of the between the space of the cross correlation show that indeed the concept was true. Not only did the very events happen, but the disclosure of the when the last 5 catalytic were what position shell of the Earth has been in for at least 35,000 or more years. This was the first time ever it was certain. So after the years of work, research began in 1949. Culver's challenge had an answer. Yes, indeed, cataclysms do happen, but I found that find with the answers to challenge. To find the cause of the events, it would take 20 or more years to find the cause and the trigger of the catalysm. What makes it start with the further that exactly what's happening after it starts, what is the process for the catalysm, and finally, what is the terrible timetable of catalysm, and it was obviously already with the data of the nonlinear, what's mathematical function we could derive from the data, or is it random frustration, unpredictability? The more learned, the more discovered and learned. Meanwhile, what a dramatic story of the event in Earth's history was uncovered civilization more than 20,000 years ago, more advanced or wildest imagination prehistoric legend of the Greek, the Egypt, and India, and South America, which became history and instead of legend. Lost continent of the Atlantic and Pacific, which began with the dated realities with logical reason for the sudden disappearance. Yes, Vishnu came alive, the man who lived through the catalysm many thousands of years ago, actually 10 catalysms ago. Now he's known as the Hindu god with the 10 resurrection from the water. Osiris was rediscovered that he was the Jesus of the time and man of Egypt, sometimes 15,000 years ago. Noah smiled at us from the page of the epic of Galsham, and he actually was a Sumerian named Udonashvism, who lived around 7,000 years ago. The ark he built is more than legend. The process of the catalysm is known as more. The ark they built is more than legend. The process of catalysm is known now. Look at the cross-section Earth inside of the front of the cup. You see the 2 molten layers, the yellow ones of the important one with this molten layer starting 60 miles down, exceeding the 60 miles or deeper to 120 miles below the surface of the Earth. The thicker the deeper the molten layer, the starting at 1,800 miles down and at the bottom of the mantle, extending 13,000 miles deeper than the inner core seismology has proven that these 2 yellow layers have been molten, and they are white hot over 2,500 degrees in Fahrenheit. The outer 60-mile thick layer is one of the supply of the volcanic with the molten lava that spew forth. Inside of the Earth, electrical magnetic structure of the interior makes the layers as if they were near solid or plastic. As long as the interior of the magnetic electrical structure of the Earth maintains its orderliness, the old Earth keeps on rotating in its axis in a normal manner. If anything done with the Antarctic ice cap is growing, it has been proven it is growing with the rate of the Lake Ontario per year, with the Greenland growing since they have the non-center of the Earth axis and with the rotation. They develop centrifugal force coupling with each other the direction perpendicular to the Earth axis. It's like a swing of a bucket of water around yourself on a rope. The water stays in the bucket if you don't have the restraining rope, and the bucket of water would fly away. In the case of the ice cap, for the restraining the rope and there's gravity, which keeps the two ice caps landlocked. Since the ice caps therefore cannot fly away, they resolve the problems trying to pull over the entire shell of the Earth above 60-mile thick molten layers around the interior of the Earth. As long as the electrical magnetic structure is maintained inside of the Earth, the ice caps cannot pull the shell around to let them go to the equator. We maintain our orderly daily, monthly, yearly rotation. Right now, we don't know why every thousands of years, the very timetable of magnetic electrical orderliness, shallow molten layer over the disorganized field that is not known what means it is disrupted. It is here to be the way which levers low energy with the extent of the shell and molten layer would allow it to act free liquid, letting the molten layer act as the molten liquid which serves as the lubricant and the ice caps to pull the shell around the Earth's interior. Acts of the ice cap shift about 90 degrees in the torrid zone. And 1/4 day with the geographic pole of the move of the torrid zone, when all hell is let loose for the atmosphere of the Earth, the ocean, lakes don't shift with shell. You just keep it on rotating west to the east of an equator that speeds up at 1,337 miles per hour. So while the shell shifts, if the poles again with the equator of the winds, oceans continue eastward, blowing with the flooding across the Earth at supersonic speeds and indicting contents which waters miles deep into destroying everything in which they even ever dealt, including himself. This is the summary of the process. Now, what's about the trigger that turned out to be the most elusive piece of the whole puzzle? We couldn't rely on supernatural assumption, like sometimes it happened into the heaven of the vague, the character which they actually violated the laws of the nature, and no, it had to be something unnatural, part of nature's order and structure, to disrupt the Earth's inner electrical magnetic structure. Whatever the catalysm happens, it also happens to be kind of the happening with a decrease in an inner electrical magnetic force, the extent that they cannot support keeping the shallow molten layer acting as if they were placid or near solid. We once thought that the severe sunspot could be caused because of this disrupt the Earth, the inner of the electrical magnetic structure. What were wrong? Time wasted assumption was the private dealing assumptions rather than fact. It was the detour to take what was necessary would it to be with the patient to make more time to assemble the more facts and our most valuable tool, analytical reasoning, with the solution whether it might be or would not, or whether it might be or would come. Derivation of the process gave the greater understanding prehistoric events. For instance, can you see with the age of the dome lighter, with the advance of the retreating ice, some of the different air of the Earth of the polar region, of the different time, of the different duration of the time change of the between position taking place a fraction of the day, and accompanying with a supersonic bulges deposit of the various huge straws we find in the wall of the Grand Canyon, the painted desert momentum valley with the mountains around Mexican Hot Canyon, DHLA Moncul Drugway. The story on the world gives the silent testimony of the birth of the mammoth frozen in the mud of the buttercups in the mouth of the aged gorge of the below of the Niagara Falls, St. Anthony's Fall of the both 7,000 years southern the end of the Lutetian Basin ice cap in Canada about 11,500 years ago, uninterrupted evolution with the Galapagos over 11,000 years ago, geological dating of the Murmur Bridge River Basin in Australia showing the end of the ice cap at about 11,500 years ago, the age of fossil bones taken from the Wilshire Boulevard tar pits over 11,000 years ago, the sudden end of all the work of the prehistoric city of the Tycoon, Bolivia, 11,500 years ago. Leonard Woolley's great work on the Holy Land, dating the notice flood is about 6,000 years ago. In the Wisconsin ice cap about 29,000 years ago. Some of the 200-foot rise of the oceans all over the world about 7,000 years ago. Southern rise of St. Louis River bed was 7,000 years ago. The changing sun levels of the shoreline with the Hudson Ray and the Canada, the huge gigantic blocks of the Alps sitting on the eastern slope of the Jura Mountains in 4,000 feet above sea level. The greater Ligurian Fraser of the uncovered of the over 8,000 verified separate Indonesian single survival legends in Malay Peninsula. The Pyrrhic Justice of Empiric March for the Australia, which showed the quick extinction of many species, including the humans 11,500 years ago. Puri rest map showing the North Pole and the age of the Egypt water clock showing agreement in the Puri recess map granite on top of the mountains of the Darth Valley in California. Greatest stress faction Grand Canyon painted desert mounted valley of the Badlands, each with a layer homogeneous showing the deposited there, slightly with a fantastic amount of super swift water. The present growth of the Antarctic ice cap is approximately 293 cubic miles of ice per year, with the legend of the primitive man with the terror of the day, with the fuse, with the sun, with the triplet, with the south of America, with the day, with the sun set, with the wrong direction. Legend of the primitive man with the Peru, with the day sun stood still. The legend of the Milan and Samaritan tribe of the Aborigines of the long night. The Varv of the Counts of the Western Shore of the Minnesota, the Haction, the New Jersey, which conform with each other, the prevalence of the jade of the Orient, which of the material are heaved from the male near equatorial pivot points for the during Cataclysms, the fantastic evidence of origin tropical plants of the Antarctic, Siberia, Alaska, Antarctica frozen, preserved for thousands of years in a fraction of a day during a cataclysm. Similar of the language world over the Polynesian to the Greek, the Egyptian to the Mayan, Eskimo to the Yakat, and to the Oriental and more. The footprints of the dinosaurs imprinted into beds with the exposed of the riverbed, mud frozen in the prints of the deteriorated remaining freezing for the thousands of years, allowing the mud prints to ossify for us of the dinosaur footprints and rock bed today. Correlation of ice cages in that Stone Age is quick. The extinction of all of the species of the world over. The survival of primitive life of the equilateral pivot point of at least two beginnings, the Malay Peninsula and Galapagos, both now rive of the lizard for existence. Coral relief of the flower of the Arctic Ocean. A more and more give the prehistoric picture of the position of the Earth's shell during the past 35,000 or more years. The overlapping evidence we put in order to give the dramatic picture of the which are of the North Pole, the which moved to the pole, which then moved away from the pole, for the how long they were there, and the chart of the next page. But notice the end of the era is the same in the start of the next era, but although the chart is termed the years ago, the year's duration, do remember that the change of one era to the next occurs in a fraction of a day, short enough to call abrupt. Ship of the Arctic Ocean started 70,000 years ago. The north air is North Pole, North Polar air is Arctic Ocean 7,000 years ago. Sudan Basin 11,500 years ago, ended 7,000 years ago, duration 4,500 years. Hudson Bay 18,500 years ago, ended 11,500, duration 700. Capson Sea 29,000, ended 18,500. Duration 10,050. Wisconsin was ended at 29,000. Yes, Noah and Adam and Eve and Horus of the Tarot of Zeus and Vishnu have much deeper meaning now as the joint hands walk with us. We hear Adam and Eve saying, "Listen for now. Listen for now. We can truly share our story with it happens." The story of enigma, pursuit, and unraveling.